You all really may hate me for what I'm about to say, but I gotta be 100% honest and tell you. I do not like... Hi everyone, welcome back to DimitriTube. Bachelorette, Night 7, Tayshia Adams. Let's talk about it. Yes, the mustache is back and you are getting it for another week because I know y'all are still missing Noah's mustache. I still haven't decided how long I'm gonna keep this, but for today's review, enjoy it. As always, if you're enjoying my videos, please pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. I'm trying to grow my channel and it really helps me out. Now, before we get started, I gotta say congratulations to Kaitlyn Bristowe for winning Dancing with the Stars season 29. Kaitlyn was the lead on season 11 of The Bachelorette, and a lot of people did not think she was gonna win because Hannah B won the last season of Dancing with the Stars, but she pulled through and got the win. Congratulations. Now, for the first group date, all of the guys have 1 hour to write an original love song for Tayshia. Bennett goes to a confessional and says that he never took a music class at Harvard. Shocking. For this challenge, my favorites were Zac C, Bennett, Demar, and Ivan. Now, Demar was robbed. He really should have won this challenge. He actually had a song. It had a melody. He took a stab at JPJ. It was creative. Like, I really think he should have won this challenge. And I would have given Zac C second place because Zac C's was so cute because of his effort. You can tell Zac C has no musical talent, but he went up there with the confidence like he did. I would have given Ivan third place because Ivan's really was not that good, but he brought her on stage and tried to connect with her, which is really what elevated him. And we have to give an honorable mention to Bennett. I would have given him fourth place. His was really creative and he gets an A+ for effort. And one of the lines that he said was, "Don't want no pressure, Tayshia. I'm taking you home to Macha." And now we're going into our first one-on-one with Ivan and Tayshia. Now, to start off the date, they decide to get room service, and they are in the living room, but the phone is in Tayshia's bedroom. So what they do is, to get to the bedroom, they act like the floor is lava, and they use pieces of furniture to get there. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, wow, ABC, is the budget like $5? But then, as I watched, I was like, oh my God, I love this. And it was probably the most adorable thing I had seen ever. It was just so silly, so playful, and so cute. I loved it. And for the rest of the date, they play Twister, they play cornhole, they eat sushi, and they also share this big Sunday. Then Ivan and Tayshia sit down and start talking, and they go really deep here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide this into two parts. I'm gonna talk about their conversation, and then I'm gonna talk about their connection, because it's really two separate things that need to be talked about separately. Now let's start with their conversation. As you know, ABC typically does not get involved with really sensitive topics, whether it be domestic violence, addiction, politics, race, religion, all of that. ABC normally just does not touch it. Now, a lot of people have argued that ABC really needs to do a better job at having these tough conversations, but I don't necessarily agree. Hear me out. Now, to me, The Bachelor, Bachelorette is a getaway for me. It is a feel-good show. When I watch this show, it gives me 2 hours to just absorb myself into the Bachelor world. And this past October, y'all, I was tired. I was so tired. It's literally all you could hear about on music, in my social media feed, on television shows, in my podcasts. It's all people wanted to talk about. Like, literally, you could not get away from it. And when we were watching Claire's portion of the season in October, and I really appreciated ABC for doing that. Now, that's just my personal opinion. Some of you may disagree with me, and that's fine. We can have different opinions. Now, before I dive into the race thing, I really have to mention this real quick. Now, Tayshia and Ivan, one of the first things they start talking about is their families, and they find out they have a lot in common. And one of the things they have in common is that they're both the oldest children in their families. And because of that, they both agree that they've had it the hardest compared to all of their siblings. Now, I agree, this is true, and this is true for a lot of families. I'm the youngest out of my siblings, and I definitely got away with a lot more than my older sibling. And then after that, Ivan mentioned George Floyd. And my initial reaction was, what? Y'all, my ears perked up so hard when I heard that because The Bachelor really does not dive into topics like this. Now, if you didn't know this, this is the second reality TV series on love that I've reviewed on my YouTube channel. I'm going to try to navigate this as sensitively as I can as possible, but I also want to be 100% real with you all and tell you my honest opinion about how I felt about this scene. And keep in mind, I'm a new YouTuber, so please don't be that hard on me. So Ivan talks about how his brother went to jail for 4 years, and during those 4 years, his brother couldn't see his daughter. During his time in prison, he explains how the George Floyd situation was happening, and it was even crazier in prison, and how the correctional officers would beat up his brother. And Ivan says, regardless of what George Floyd or his brother did, these correctional officers have a job, and they need to do the job right. And then Ivan says later on that he went to a white school, and when he would walk around campus, sometimes people would yell the N-word at him. Then Ivan turns to Tayshia and asks, how have the events in the world affected you today? Then Tayshia gets really emotional, starts crying, and says it's a lot and that it's overwhelming. Then in a confessional, Ivan says, being Black, especially in this climate, there are things she's struggling with internally that I can tell she's really hesitant to say. I want Tayshia to trust and feel comfortable to share what she has gone through in her life. Now, I feel like this was a really big missed moment for Tayshia. Tayshia eventually pulls it together and responds to Ivan, and she says, being in the OC surrounded by people who don't look like me, I've been trying so hard to blend in because I knew I was different. Hearing people yell Black Lives Matter hit me more than I realized. And at this point, she gets very choked up and gets very emotional. And she also says, in my backyard, people that I've been trying to prove I'm just the same as them. Now, Ivan did an amazing job. He explained himself, but he didn't get too messy. He just said the correctional officers have a job to do, they need to do it right. And he also gave 2 examples. He said how he was called the N-word on campus and how the George Floyd situation affected his brother in prison. And Tayshia just scratched the surface. I was really waiting for a more specific example of how racism and how being Black has affected her in life. And Tayshia is a mixed woman who grew up in Orange County, which, if you didn't know, is a very white and a very conservative area. So I'm sure she's experienced some things. But also, at the same coin, I cannot blame Tayshia for not going too deep into this topic because historically, Black people in this franchise tend to get a lot of backlash from viewers. For example, during the tell-all of Peter Weber's season, they brought in Rachel to talk about racism within the Bachelor franchise. And Rachel talks about how when she was the lead, she received so many racist comments in her social media when she was the lead, and the Black cast members of Peter's season agreed with her. And some of it was so bad that Sydney ended up deleting her Twitter because of it. But overall, I did enjoy the conversation. I really wish we could have seen the entire conversation, but again, because of production, you can't see it all. Oh, but before we move on, let me say there is one thing I did not like. So Ivan and Tayshia both kept referring to themselves as biracial, and I really did not like that. Now, Ivan and Tayshia are both adults. They can do what they want, and they can refer to themselves as biracial if that's what they want. Now, I have a problem with the word biracial because it pretty much dismisses or erases your actual heritage. Now, Ivan is Black and Filipino, and Tayshia is, I'm pretty sure she's Black and Mexican. If I'm wrong, please let me know below in the comments. I apologize if that's not correct. Like, just say, I'm Black and Filipino, or say, I'm Black and Mexican. Now, if you come from a heritage where you're mixed with like 6 different things, I get it. That can be too much to say in conversation. And if you're dating the person, you want them to remember these details about you. But if it's too complicated, there's a chance they're not going to remember. But for Ivan and Tayshia, they're each mixed with 2 things. So I feel like they could have just said what they were over using the umbrella term of biracial. And oftentimes when you hear this on television, it just comes down to how does the media want to spin this? For example, the former president, Barack Obama, he's Black and white, but he's never referred to as the first biracial president. They always refer to him as the first Black president. Because at the end of the day, saying we have our first Black president is a better story for the media than saying our first biracial president. And for this instance, ABC is trying to emphasize the things that Ivan and Tayshia have in common. So it's very much like, oh, you're biracial? I'm biracial too. And emphasizing what they have in common is the storyline that they're trying to portray. Okay, and that is the end of my TED Talk for that. Now let's talk about Ivan and Tayshia's relationship. Now, y'all may hate me for saying this, but I really like Ivan, but I do not see a romantic connection between him and Tayshia. And Tayshia says a lot on this date. You all may have not caught this. So during her date with Ivan, she says two things. I haven't really had a man my age that's also of mixed descent to relate to. And she also says, never had someone mixed like me. And when she says this, it's in the context of having someone to relate to during the BLM protests. Now, this told me that more than likely, Tayshia has not dated a black man before, and that she likely does not have a lot of black friends either. Because she very much painted a picture like she had no one she can relate to about this. And Tayshia reiterates that Ivan is so different and is not like any other guy she's dated before. This made me feel like Tayshia has a type. Now, I personally do not think there is anything wrong with having a type, but this just made me feel like Ivan does not fit in that. Okay, everyone, let's all take a deep breath. I know that was very heavy. Now let's move on. Okay, next we're moving into another group date. This was easily one of the stupidest group dates I've ever seen. The guys are basically on a scavenger hunt, and during the scavenger hunt, they have to do various obstacles. They have to drink random smoothies with chicken larvae, bull's testicles, and water scorpions. They have to have Chris Harrison sign their butts. And they have to pretend like they're having an orgasm for 1 full minute on a loudspeaker phone that goes throughout the whole resort. And honestly, I did not get much from this, but watching Blake and Bennett pretend like they're having an orgasm over the phone was so cringy to watch. Like, I was watching and listening like this the entire time. Like, it was so hard for me to watch. Okay, now we're going into the cocktail party, and I just want to talk about a few of the dates. The first one-on-one date we see is with Tayshia and Bennett. I gotta give it to Bennett. He is wearing the Clark Kent glasses, and he looks good. Also, he has really dark hair and really dark eyes, and I love that. So then Tayshia asks Bennett about his prior engagement, and Bennett responds, it's a little tough to talk about. So it's clear that Bennett is uncomfortable talking about this with Tayshia. Now, this was very much a red flag to me because Bennett had mentioned this to Tayshia before, and now that it's coming up again, he's not comfortable talking about it. Now, Bennett gives a really generic response. He says, I've seen bad marriages, I've seen bad relationships, I've seen people get married for the wrong reasons. And when he was engaged, something about it, he knew it just wasn't right. Now, this is very much a red flag to me because he mentioned it before, and now that it's coming up again, he still doesn't want to talk about it. So at this point in the game, you really need to start opening up to Tayshia. As we know, this process moves very quickly, so you have to open up soon or she's gonna send you home. Please let me know below in the comments if you agree or disagree about that Bennett date. The next one-on-one we see is with Blake. Tayshia asks Blake, what's one thing your ex would warn me about? And Blake gives a good answer, but this question was just so weird to me. And then later in the conversation, Blake says one thing that I really like. He says, I'd like to get my life started. And he said this in a way to which he thinks his life does not start until he finds love and starts a family. And him saying this really touched my heart. Like, I really like this, and I thought it was so cute. The next important one-on-one we see is with Tayshia and Zac C. So a few things about this. For their one-on-one, they get into the hot tub. So I feel like Tayshia would not get into the hot tub with someone unless she was really comfortable with them. And honestly, their whole conversation was very generic. I really did not get much from it. And if you notice, during this scene, Tayshia's overall demeanor really changed in this scene. And at one point, Zac says that he's really nervous. And I think Tayshia was just as nervous as well, but she wasn't trying to let Zac C onto that. So then after the cocktail party, we see scenes of Ed and Ben going to look for Tayshia. Ed ends up getting lost and he hangs out with Chris Harrison. Y'all, Ed is such a clown. Like, I just want him to go home. I'm so over him. So Ben eventually finds Tayshia in her apartment and they have a one-on-one. Now, this was my favorite part of the entire episode. Now, I will say I was surprised because throughout the episode, they kept having Ben in confessional saying, I haven't had time, I need more time with Tayshia, etc., etc. And normally when this happens, the producers are setting up for the guy to go home. But Ben apologizes to Tayshia for disappointing her, and then he's open and honest and explains his plan of meeting her at the end of the night and having a nightcap. that. Now, Tayshia forgives him, and there's a knock at the door, and you think it's Ed interrupting their moment, but it's in fact room service with the nightcap of champagne and strawberries. Now, the first thing I noticed was that room service was not wearing a mask. This guy must have been from production, because when I first saw that, I was like, do you not go home at the end of your shift when working at La Quinta? Because you should be wearing a mask. And y'all, when I saw this nightcap moment, like, I literally cried. What I loved about this is that on this show, people tend to give a lot of insincere apologies, but this was not that. Ben apologized, and then he made up for it with a gift of strawberries and champagne. Then he told her he was going to change and how he was going to change. It was so sincere, and then the moment they shared after was just so cute. Like, he finally got to put his initial plan together. And literally in the next scene during the rose ceremony, Ben is the first one to steal Tayshia away. And I don't know if you caught this, but he says, "Hi, my name's Ben, and this is me showing up." So Ben 100% stepped it up, and just from this alone, I really think he's gonna make it to Fantasy Suites. And the last one-on-one we're going to talk about is between Noah and Tayshia. Now, in this part, they show a scene of Noah and Tayshia walking together. I don't think Tayshia will pick Noah, but I gotta admit, they look good together. Now, Noah tells Tayshia that some of the guys are saying he only got a rose so that she could shake things up in the house. Now, I really wish Noah would have left it at that, but Noah poses the question again for a second time. He frames it in a way where he's like, I don't like that the guys are doing this because they're questioning your integrity. So after that, Tayshia ends the cocktail party early, and then she gives the guys a talk, and they see that she's upset, and the guys surmise that Noah was behind it. This drama was just so stupid, and I thought it was such a waste of time, but there are a couple things we can talk about. So Tayshia asks Noah to drop some names, and Noah does not drop any names of who did it. And this is so dumb to me because Noah should have dropped some names like, what do you have to lose? Everyone in the house already doesn't like you, except Chasen, but then he later gets eliminated. And then a lot of the guys are mad because they're gonna go into the rose ceremony and they didn't get enough time with Tayshia. Now, this is stupid because at this point, if you're getting sent home, it's not because of Noah, it's because you did not have a connection with Tayshia. Now, at this point, we've had multiple group dates and we've had like 8 cocktail parties. So if you have not made an impression on Tayshia at this point, you never will. And Bennett at one point tells Noah that he has 0% chance with Tayshia. I thought this made Bennett look so stupid because Noah has the rose. Bennett doesn't. So clearly Noah's doing something right. Tayshia says she's a strong woman, she's capable of making her own decisions, and that she's not giving out roses to start drama. Now, I just believe that the producers had a hand in this because Ed got a rose. Like, clearly Ed is staying for the drama. Like, Ed and Tayshia have 0 connection. It blows my mind that you would keep Ed over Jordan or Joe, who are genuinely nice guys that are there for the right reasons. And during the previous episode, Tayshia said that she was catching feelings for Chasen. So why would you keep Ed over Chasen? Like, that does not make sense. And last thing before we close out this review. Yep, that's the outfit of the episode. Now, when it comes to Tayshia's outfits, you all really may hate me for what I'm about to say, but I gotta be 100% honest and tell you. I do not like Tayshia's style. I preferred Claire's style a lot more over Tayshia's. Tayshia has a very laid-back style, and I don't like that. Part of the reason I love this show is because I love seeing the over-the-top glamour, and Claire gave us that over-the-top glamour, but Tayshia doesn't really give us that, and I think it's just not her style. And one of the reasons I tend to prefer Bachelor over the Bachelorette is that you just get way more fashion. And on The Bachelorette, you have one lead, and if you don't like her style, you're just kind of stuck with it for the season. And sometimes you'll have a fashionable guy, but normally it's not many. Like, if you saw Hannah B's season, Dylan was like pretty stylish, but other than him, that was it. So for this week's outfit of the episode, I'm gonna give it to the dress that Tayshia wore at the AMA Awards. Tayshia is wearing a Balmain dress and she looks good. I also really love her hair. Apparently at the awards, she also presented an award. I didn't watch, but I'm sure she did a good job. Also, during the rose ceremony, her hair looked amazing then as well. Whoever her hair person is, they deserve some kudos as well. And that is the end of the episode. I really hope you all enjoyed the review today. If you did, please pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. Again, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel and it really helps me out. And I look forward to seeing all of you on the next review. Have a good one. Bye.